Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our topic today is cellular respiration. We are already familiar with the meaning of respiration. That respiration is the breaking down of food substances within the cells to release energy for doing work. And we have two types of respiration. We have direct or external respiration, which take place at the surface of respiratory organ of organism. Then the second stage, the first stage of respiration is direct or indirect respiration, which take at the surface of respiratory organ of living organisms. The second stage is indirect respiration or internal respiration. This indirect respiration or internal respiration is also referred to as cellular or tissue respiration. We have two types of cellular respiration. We have aerobic and anaerobic respiration. In the case of aerobic, the oxygen is required to oxidize food substances to release energy in the form of ATP for doing work. But in the case of anaerobic respiration, oxygen does not require to break down food substances. Types of cellular respiration. First one, aerobic. Aerobic respiration. The second one is anaerobic respiration. Now, cellular respiration now. Cellular respiration is the oxidation of food substances or is the breaking down of food substances in the cells, particularly mitochondria, to release energy in form of ATP for doing work. That ATP is a chemical energy. The full meaning of ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. Now, we have two types of cellular respiration. We have aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is a cellular respiration whereby oxygen is required for the oxidation or breaking down of food substances in the cell, particularly mitochondria, to release energy, carbon dioxide and water vapor. Lis ten again. Aerobic respiration is a type of respiration whereby oxygen is required for the breaking down or oxidation of food substances in the cell to release energy, carbon dioxide and water vapor. Then this is the equation for the aerobic respiration. C6H12O6 plus 6 molecule of oxygen. Then this is one byproduct carbon dioxide. This is second byproduct, which is water vapor. Then energy, this is energy that is released, ATP energy, chemical energy. Then 38 ATP is released per molecule of glucose. This one represent anaerobic respiration. This is glucose. Then this is ethanol. This is one byproduct, ethanol. This is another byproduct, carbon dioxide. Then 2 ATP is released per molecule of glucose at the end of anaerobic respiration. Now, if you look at aerobic respiration, this aerobic respiration take place in most organisms. This anaerobic respiration take place in the bacteria, fungi, endoparasites such as roundworm, tapeworm. It is also take place in the yeast. This anaerobic respiration is also take place in the yeast. That is, yeast carries out anaerobic respiration. Now let us look at the types of anaerobic respiration. We have two types of anaerobic respiration. The first type of anaerobic respiration being alcoholic fermentation. Types of anaerobic respiration. The first one being alcoholic fermentation. The second one is lactic acid fermentation. Now, in the case of alcoholic fermentation, in the case of this one, alcoholic fermentation, glucose is first converted into pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid is now reduced into ethanol or alcohol by accepting two hydrogen atom, or by accepting hydrogen atom from NADH2. In the case of alcoholic fermentation, look at the equation. Alcoholic fermentation, glucose is first reduced into pyruvic acid. This pyruvic acid, in the case of alcoholic fermentation, this glucose is first converted into pyruvic acid. This is pyruvic acid. This pyruvic acid is now reduced this pyruvic acid is now reduced into alcohol. Now, sorry, there is no NAD here. This is NAD plus. Because this one, this equation carry NAD plus because this one NADH plus 2 NADH2 NADH2 because this one is converted into ethanol, after which it has accepting hydrogen atom from NADH2. Now, the second one is lactic acid fermentation. This lactic acid fermentation occur in the muscle cells after strenuous exercise. After the completion of strenuous exercise, the pyruvic acid will be converted, the glucose will be converted into pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid will now be converted into lactic acid in the absence of oxygen. That is, before the pyruvic acid is converted into lactic acid, there must be no oxygen in the muscle cell. After the strenuous exercise, during strenuous exercise, the glucose will be converted into pyruvic acid. The glucose will be converted into pyruvic acid. After strenuous exercise, this pyruvic acid will be converted or will be reduced. This pyruvic acid will be reduced into what? Into lactic acid in the absence of oxygen after strenuous exercise. That is why there is need for the athlete to breathe oxygen in through panting or breathe heavily to take in. There is need for athlete to take in more oxygen into the muscle cell by breathing heavily or panting after exercise to replace the lost oxygen in the muscle cell so that he or she can recover. Now, let us look at the oxygen depth. Oxygen depth is a situation whereby there is insufficient oxygen in the muscle cell to oxidize lactic acid into pyruvic acid. Oxygen depth. Oxygen depth is a situation whereby there is insufficient or lack of oxygen in the muscle cells to oxidize the lactic acid into pyruvic acid. I told you that after strenuous exercise, the pyruvic acid will be reduced into lactic acid in the absence of oxygen. Then, for the pyruvic acid to be oxidized for the lactic acid to be oxidized into pyruvic acid, there is need for athletes to take in more oxygen into the muscle cells because it is this oxygen that will oxidize lactic acid into what? Into pyruvic acid. I want you to note that immediately the pyruvic acid has been reduced into lactic acid, the muscle cell will become fatigue. The muscle will become fatigue. That is why the athlete usually become weak after strenuous exercise because the pyruvic acid has been reduced into what? Into lactic acid as a result of lack or insufficient oxygen in the muscle cells. Now, let us look at the causes of oxygen debt. 1. Vigorous exercise. During vigorous exercise, the oxygen in the muscle cell will be exhausted. There can be insufficient or lack of oxygen in the muscle cells due to the formation of lactic acid. And the muscle will become fatigue. Strenuous exercise is one. The second one is accumulation of lactic acid in the muscle cells. This accumulation of lactic acid in the muscles also can lead to the oxygen debt. The third one is the insufficient oxygen in the muscle cell to oxidize lactic acid into pyruvic acid. The insufficient of oxygen in the muscle cells also can lead to oxygen debt. Listen again, number 3.3. Insufficient oxygen in the muscle cells to oxidize lactic acid into pyruvic acid. These are the main three causes of oxygen debt. Now, let us look at the differences between anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. That is, differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Number one, aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. That is, aerobic respiration requires oxygen. Aerobic respiration requires oxygen, while anaerobic respiration does not require oxygen. 2. More energy is produced at the end of anaerobic respiration. 2. More energy is produced at the end of aerobic respiration. That is, 38 ATP is produced per molecule of glucose. While less energy is produced at the end of anaerobic respiration. That is, 2 ATP is produced per molecule of glucose at the end of anaerobic respiration. 3. In aerobic respiration, sugar is completely oxidized. In anaerobic respiration, sugar is incompletely oxidized. The next one is that carbon dioxide and water vapor are the byproduct of aerobic respiration, while carbon dioxide, ethanol or lactic acid are the byproduct of anaerobic respiration. Listen again. Carbon dioxide and water vapor are the byproduct of aerobic respiration, while carbon dioxide and ethanol or lactic acid are the byproduct of anaerobic respiration. The next one is that aerobic respiration takes place in both plants and animals, while anaerobic respiration takes place in fungi, yeast, bacteria, and endoparasites such as tapeworm and roundworm. The last one is that aerobic respiration takes place in both cytoplasm and mitochondria, while anaerobic respiration takes place in the cytoplasm only. Now, let us look at the chemical processes of cellular respiration. we have two processes, two stages in these processes. The first stage is glycolytic pathway or glycolysis. This glycolysis take place in the cytoplasm only because it is anaerobic respiration and it is the first stage of cellular respiration. The second one is Krebs cycle which take place in the mitochondria and it is aerobic respiration or cellular respiration. Glycolysis is anaerobic while Krebs cycle is aerobic. That Krebs cycle is second stage of cellular respiration. Now, look at this chart. This is the chart of processes of or the stages of cellular respiration. The first stage, this is the first, look at it. This is the first stage, which is glycolytic pathway. Look, in this stage, the glucose is combined or is added to the phosphate group. The glucose is added to the phosphate group to become phosphorylated glucose. This phosphorylated glucose now form triol sugar by the removal of 4 carbon atom. This triol sugar is a 3 carbon sugar. Then when one molecule of carbon, no, listen to me very well. The glucose combine with phosphate group to form phosphorylated glucose or glucose phosphate. This glucose phosphate is now converted into triol sugar, 3 carbon sugar. Then when 4 atom of hydrogen is removed from triol sugar, which is 3 carbon sugar, pyruvic acid is formed. Pyruvic acid is formed. Then when one molecule of carbon in the form of carbon dioxide by the process known as decarboxylation is removed from pyruvic acid, and 1 atom of hydrogen is also removed by the process known as dehydrogenation. The acetic acid is formed, which is 2 carbon acid. It is this acetic acid that enter into Krebs cycle by combining with oxaloacetic acid to form citric acid. This oxaloacetic acid is 4 carbon acid. The citric acid is 6 carbon acid. Then the 1 atom of hydrogen and 1 atom of carbon dioxide or carbon are now removed from citric acid. The ketoglutaric acid is formed, which is 5 carbon acid. Then when 1 atom of hydrogen and 1 atom of carbon dioxide are removed from ketoglutaric acid, 5 carbon acid, the succinic acid is formed, which is 4-carbon sugar. When one atom of hydrogen is removed from succinic acid, which is 4-carbon sugar, malic acid is formed, which is 4-carbon sugar, which is also 4-carbon sugar. When one atom of hydrogen is also removed from this malic acid, oxaloacetic acid is formed, which is also 4-carbon sugar. Then this oxaloacetic acid lead to the formation of citric acid, and the cycle is repeated like this. Note that this Krebs cycle is second stage and is take place in the mitochondria. Now let us go to the uses of ATP energy, or importance of ATP, that is chemical energy, importance of chemical energy. 1. Chemical energy is needed for doing work. That is, ATP is required for doing work. ATP energy is needed for doing work. 1. 2. ATP is required for the active transport of ion. ATP energy is required, or ATP is required for active transport of ions. 3. It is needed for the cell to divide. That is, ATP, which is chemical energy, is needed by the cells to divide. 3. It is needed for the production of light for some organisms such as fireflies. Another one, it is needed for the synthesis of protein, minerals. It is needed for the synthesis of protein, glucose, fat and oils. Another one, it is needed for all metabolic activities of the body. Another one, it produces heat, or it is needed for the production of heat needed by the warm-blooded animals. The last one is that it is needed for the maintenance of body temperature. ATP is needed for the production of heat that is needed by the organisms for the maintenance of body temperature. That's that about today's class. Your assignment, I want you to go to your portal to check your assignment and make sure that this assignment, the solution to the assignment, is submitted next week. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.